everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and this is a video overview of this knife. And I'm just going to let it sit there for a second while I talk so that you can take a look at it. This knife is called the Terracraft. It's part of Gerber's Reserve line. And the idea here is that they are making these small batch, high-end knives, and they are doing hand finishing on them. There is a folder in this line that's coming soon. And hopefully I'll get one of those in for review when it comes out. The other thing about these knives is that they are part of the customization program that Gerber has. It's very similar to Benchmade's program. You can go on and you can add graphics, you can swap colors out, you can change the blade color, those kinds of things. And so you can get this knife any way you want. And the way that it ships normally when you don't customize it is that they have one that has a gray G10 handle, and then they have this one that has a green G10 handle with red liners. The sheath is a leather sheath, and we'll go over this in a minute. There's a couple of things on this sheath that make it a little different than a normal sheath. It is an absolutely beautifully finished leather sheath, especially for the price. This Terracraft knife is $150, and that sounds like a lot for a fixed blade, but I'm going to go through it and talk to you about why I don't think it is. The knife runs S30V blade steel, and like I said, it has G10 handles. I'm going to pop the knife open and talk a little bit about the specs. The knife has a 4-inch blade, just a little bit over 4 inches. It is massively, massively thick steel. I mean, it is at least, let's see, I'm sitting here in my workshop, so I'll just grab my tape measure. It is clearly, I mean, it's definitely 3/16. It might be a 1/4 inch. It is a massively thick slab of steel. As you can see, they have these hollow fasteners to keep the knife scales on the knife itself. It also allows you to lash stuff, and this last one can function as a lanyard. There's a point at the end of the knife, so you can use it to like crack open nuts or things like that. It's a very good little bashing tool if you don't have a hammer, you didn't carry a hammer with you. There's a sharpening choil here. It is not designed for your fingers, but it is a perfect sharpening choil. And you have these very unusual 3D shaped handles that are not the typical Coke bottling that you see, you know, on a fixed blade. You have like the flare out and then the flare in. Let me grab my BK16 that I made a sheath for, and you can see what I'm talking about. See, on a normal fixed blade, you have this Coke bottling where it kind of looks like the old Coke bottles where it's slender. It's slender at the top, it flares out and it comes back in, and then it has a round base at the bottom. This knife does not have that Coke bottling, and yet it is a absolutely wonderful knife in hand, and I'll talk about why in a second. The knife itself is relatively heavy, in part because of the blade stock. It's significantly heavier than, for example, this BK16. As you can see, I took the coating off the BK16, I switched up the handle, and I also made a Kydex sheath for it. So that's my workshop knife, and I really actually like it as a workshop knife. Let's talk about the Terracraft. So there's a lot to like about the Terracraft. As you can see, they have the green G10 with the red liners. You're getting that absolutely beloved color combination. It's a nod to the Loveless knives, and I think it's one of those things that if you're a knife guy and you see it, you know that the people that are making that knife are paying attention. And it's very clear to me after this knife and the Fastball that Gerber is now paying attention and taking the high end of the market very seriously. You can also see that this is a really heavy stone wash. This knife is going to show no damage whatsoever. It is absolutely, perfect stone wash. This is like not quite, but very close to Hinder caliber stone wash, and I think Hinder does the best stone wash in the business. I think that the design of the handle is a masterpiece. It is absolutely unconventional and complex geometry, which normally I think is a bad idea on a handle, but it really works. And let's talk about why. So what they've done is they've cut this sort of geometric shape into the handle, and they've made this part thicker than this part down here. And what it does is it promotes your fingers hitting the right spot so that the knife is really thin here and really thick up here. And it means that your hand is kind of locked in to this place. But it's not locked into a way that wouldn't allow you to grip the knife in different ways. You can still grip the knife in all different kinds of ways. And in fact, in a pinch grip, it does really good. You have this, normal, detail kind of work. And this ridge right here gives a place for your middle finger and your thumb to rest. And it has a different purpose, but an equally good purpose when you're holding the knife in a traditional forward grip. In an ice pick grip, the knife also works well, and it's because of this round over here. You get this place where your pinky finger rests quite nicely, but also a place for your thumb if you need to do the thumb thing. It is just an excellent, excellent handle shape. I've never seen anything like this except on another cheaper Gerber knife, but in terms of the handle shape, you're going to be hard-pressed to find something that is this unorthodox but works as well as this. I love, love, love this handle shape. The other thing that I really like is I love the classic, just easy drop point blade shape. They didn't do anything crazy. They didn't go with like a zero grind. This is a traditional knife grind. This is marketed as like a hardcore bushcraft knife, but it has a traditional grind. It doesn't go for the zero grind. And I think that was a good decision. Zero grinds are exceptionally sharp out of the box, but over time, you'll naturally put a cutting bevel on it as you sharpen it, unless you are an exceptionally skilled sharpener and you have all the right equipment. But for most people, this grind is the one that's easiest to maintain, and they did a really good job there. So, unorthodox, great handle, very classic, easy to use, well-made, well-designed blade shape. But let's talk about the sheath, because most of the time on a fixed blade knife, the sheath is the downfall. Like I have a Bark River BK1 or a Bark River Bravo 1 in in 3V, and it is a fantastic knife with a terrible sheath. Bussies don't even come with sheaths. This knife, I redid the sheath because it was basically a nylon sock. The problem with most fixed blades is that their sheaths suck. And if you're talking about leather sheaths, they're horrible. You typically just get like this leather sock. This sheath, however, has a bunch of nice, smart features that make it really, really good. And let's talk about those. So the first thing is, and I'm not sure if you can see it, I'm going to try to get the camera up here. I'm not sure if you can see it. Let me see if I can scoop this out of the way. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it, but there is actually a bit of real thin plastic or Kydex lined inside of here. And what they did is they took it up, they bent it back, they put this piece of leather here, and then they sandwiched it along the edge. So the leather is actually a stack. It's leather, Kydex, and leather again. And then they've sewn and riveted it all together. So this little liner is never going to come out. And it means that your knife on the inside isn't going to get chewed up. It still just slides in. It's basically, almost like having all of the benefits of a Kydex sheath with all of the benefits and the looks of a leather sheath. It doesn't have that snap retention. That's the one thing that it's missing. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I think this is a really great idea. I've seen it on a couple of custom knives. I have yet to see it on a production sheath, and I think it works very, very well. The last thing that I'll point out on this sheath is I think that the retention device that they have is brilliant. So if you look at the knife and you place it in the sheath, they have this little sort of speed bump here, and that speed bump fits right into the index notch. And when the knife is closed, it locks the knife in. There's no, you could pull pretty hard before you're gonna pull this knife out of the sheath. That fixes a lot of the retention problems that you see in production leather sheaths. And it does so without adding a ton of bulk or a ton of width to the knife. The knife in the sheath is actually quite slim. I made this sheath a little bigger than I had to because it was my first real Kydex sheath. But, it's pretty slim and small. The final thing that I want to note is how they did the belt loop. The belt loop here is right here, and it gives you plenty of space to put an extra wide belt in, but it's not going to be sloppy because as you pull this tight, it tightens up the belt loop on the leather sheath. So you're using the retention strap as a loop tightener on the belt loop. And I have not seen this before. I'm sure somebody has done this, but the overall result is this is one of the best sheaths out there. This is the only leather sheath I've ever seen in a production knife that I thought was well done. And so what we have is we have an incredibly well designed knife. And now, for the first time on Gerber products, well, the first time in a long time, the fit and finish on this is spectacular. Like I said, the stone washing is good. The spine is absolutely crispy sharp here. If you want to throw sparks, you can do that all day long. The handle scales, which are hand finished, feel great. There's no, all of the materials are fingernail flush. Nothing sticks out. As you can see, the sheath is beautiful. They've done a really good job on the edges. The stitching is nice and clean, especially for a production sheath. The buttons and snaps look good. The embossed logo is nice. Everything on this sheath is well done. Everything on the knife is well done. This is a very well made knife. And here's the kicker. This knife is made by the largest knife company in the world. And before, it used to be that you couldn't beat Gerber in terms of volume, but you could certainly beat them in terms of quality. With something like this and the Gerber Reserve line, the Terracraft is easily equal to some of the better fixed blades out there. And so you couldn't beat them by going bigger. You used to have to go better. This is a sign that it might not be able to go better anymore or beat out Gerber by being better, because they've done this so very well. I will say that it is a fixed blade knife, and so it is relatively simple to do a good fixed blade knife. And I'll wait to make a final judgment until I see what the folder is like. But this is a very promising start, and it's a really great, interesting knife, and I can't wait to sit down and write a review about it. This is an overview of the Gerber Terracraft. Look for a written review coming soon.